Good evening. I'd like to call the study session of the North Augusta City Council from Monday, February 28, 2022 to order. And I'd like to turn it over to our City Administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all again. I know it's been a while, but we're happy to be back. And we'll go ahead. In this study session, we'll cover three major items, the first being the City Council meeting for next Monday. Second will be department details, which will be provided by the department heads. And then lastly, the Mayor's Matters, and we'll take it from there. So if I can, I'll go to item number one, which is the City Council meeting. And this is a mix of unfinished business and new business. So we'll start with our unfinished business. So if we go into item number 5 under zoning, that would be for the second reading of ordinance number 2022-02, which is to amend the zoning map of the city of North Augusta, South Carolina by rezoning plus or minus 8.34 acres of land owned by the South Carolina North Augusta Buena Vista LLC. And it lists out the Aiken County tax parcels. The four numbers there from GC, general commercial, to PD, plan development ordinance, second reading. So I would also note that items 5 and 6 are linked as they were last time. So this has to do with the subdivision that we call the Mealing Tract there between East Buena Vista and East Martintown Road. And so this first item under zoning is to take some of the smaller parcels that they have that front Martintown Road and turn those into the PD. So that's the first step of making that development all one contiguous plan development going forward. So I'll pause for any questions on that one.
I'm just assuming that it's been rewritten where the tie-in does not happen.
That's actually covered on the second.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I know it's the second one, but they're linked. I'm assuming since that passed last time. Okay. That's
correct. So this particular item is strictly those very small parcels, just to get those into the overall PD. So if there's no objections to that, what we'll talk now is the next item, which is item number 6 under planning and development, ordinance number 2022-03, to approve the general development plan for the 51.83 plus or minus acres of Bluegrass Place plan development on East Martintown Road and East Buena Vista, second reading, which again, I know there's a lot of discussion on this topic at the last council meeting, and this revolved around the connectivity of the neighborhoods between the proposed neighborhood and the existing neighborhood that's near the school. And so we took council guidance to mean that they wanted to remove that connectivity along the one road there into the existing neighborhood. And my understanding is that's how we're presenting it as the forward movement there for that ordinance. But I'll defer to Mr. Paradise if I got any of that wrong. All right, he's telling me that I didn't get that wrong, so there we are. So that's going to go forward with a no connectivity between that neighborhood, existing neighborhood, and the new neighborhood.
And it's underlined, says without the connectivity to Goldman Street. So
that's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll pause for any questions for council members really on those two items as they're related. Hearing none, I'll move into item 7. Under economic development, which is ordinance number 2022-04, to approve the general development plan, or correction, ordinance number 22-04, to authorize the city to enter into a First Amendment to the Master Development Agreement of March 15, 2017 for the North Augusta Riverside Village. And this is the second reading of the ordinance. And again, what this essentially does is take the existing terms of the 5-year master development agreement that the city entered into in 2017, which expires on March 15th of 2022, and extends those terms for 1 year. The staff believes that's a beneficial move to have some stability in the project as we move forward, and I believe legal counsel would give you the same feedback as well, both internal and external counsel. But our recommendation is to go forward. So I know this was voted on last time. This will be the second ordinance, which will allow us to get all the signatures to allow us to extend the MDA by 1 year and for us to evaluate the MDA on a year-by-year basis as opposed to a 5-year block. Any questions on that item?
So that, this names all the new new people, the different names, entities that will be in there, is that right? Am I reading that right? Okay.
In order for this to be in effect, Councilman, we'll have to, and Rachel Moody and I are already starting to shop this around with the other signatories, so they can actually sign this before the city council does. But ultimately, that arrangement will not go into effect until we have all the proper signatures.
Okay.
Jim, I think my only question is kind of what happens if we don't do it? Like, what does it look like if we did not pass this through?
Well, I think my personal concern, and I defer to Mr. Zier for his legal opinion, but when it comes to the master development agreement, that was hammered out with a lot of lawyers. And so that has a high legal cost. So if the city determines that they want to let the master development agreement lapse and then enter into new terms and start to renegotiate those from scratch, our lawyer, outside counsel costs were kind of wrapped into the bond payments for the original for the original Riverside Village. I don't have a robust fund stream, if you will, to tie into excessive legal bills to be able to do that. So from a cost perspective, I think there's a benefit to extending the master development agreement to the city, and then I think also from a flexibility perspective, doing this on a year-to-year basis allows us to make calls in a much shorter time frame than on a 5-year arrangement. So we kind of look at this as a good, I hate to say compromise, but just the ability to look at not having to pay outside counsel for a ton of hours to be able to do a basic agreement and move this, into a year-to-year arrangement. Did that answer your question, Councilman? I don't know if Kelly had any supplemental guidance.
I don't, if she's satisfied, I don't want to confuse anybody.
Yeah, don't mess it up.
Yeah, that's right.
It took a lot of hours and I'm sure a lot of money to get that together. It was a long process, I promise you that, I remember.
Okay, if that answers those questions, and let's move, if we can, into new business. So item number 8, which is an easement, ordinance number 2022-05, to abandon a portion of a water line easement located in Rushing Waters, Phase 4 subdivision. And this is the first reading of that ordinance. And what our staff is telling me, and if you have deeper questions, I'll turn it over to them, is that the original easement that we have here is not required for this subdivision, that they've actually moved the water line into a different location. And so with that easement that is listed, it can be abandoned because there's no requirement for us to access that property to get to that water line, because the water line is not going to be there. It'll be a new and exciting place.
No reason not to do it.
Any questions on that one? Okay. The next item we'll move into is item number 9, and this is under stormwater, resolution number 2022-11, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with South Carolina North Augusta Buena Vista LLC related to the construction of a stormwater and drainage improvement project extending across the area from Martintown Road to Buena Vista Avenue on a parcel of property containing 50.86 acres, currently under contract to SC North Augusta Buena Vista LLC. So essentially, you've got the resolution in front of you here in your packet, but in very broad terms, what this resolution does is identifies funding for this stormwater project on what we call the Mealing Tract between East Buena Vista and Martintown Road. And I would remind the council that this project was identified in a voter referendum through Capital Project Sales Tax 4. This has been a long standing requirement, if you will. And so what we're seeing right now is a fair amount of water and stormwater that comes across Martintown Road, comes across this property, causes a bit of a gully, and then further dumps sediment into the stream bed that goes down by Dog Bark Park, and then also down into the River Club. That was a little tricky for me, Mr. Mayor. I got it through eventually. Did I get that right? Okay. So eventually it does cause sediment issues across parts of the city. So ultimately, this is a project the city had identified as a requirement in CPSD4, and really because of the development that's going to go forward there, this is an ability for us to, take the money that we get out of CPSD4, although likely through the ARPA fund line, and apply it against this project, through the developer that would do this because they want this project done prior. So this actually allows us to accelerate the project from its original timeline, which probably is not going to be for several years from now, and allows us to move it forward to this year if the developer moves forward. And so Kelly's been doing an awful lot of work in negotiating with the developer to get the language just right, so we don't sign up for more than we're willing to bargain for. But it does put that cap on us for the stormwater project for $600,000. And I'll pause for any questions, and or if Kelly wants to add any amplifying data before we get into question and answer.
The only thing I'd point out is that you got a new copy of the agreement that was on the desk here tonight, and all of that was just some minor changes, really not even to the guts of the agreement. It was in the whereas provisions. Tom had pointed out to me that it maybe wasn't quite as clear referring to the project that we initially had approved, and we wanted to make sure it didn't add anything to it. And it was just to go back, as Jim has said, to make it very clear that this is not something they've come to us with a project and to convince us to do. It's a project that we had already identified that we wanted to do. They've come to us with a proposal that helps us do it quicker, is what it amounts to. Yeah.
Councilman Brooks?
Are they planning to pipe it all the way, or will it be open cut?
My understanding is they're piping it, but
I think that we're not 100% sure. I think that Tom had told me originally we were looking at some open areas, but we have the right to approve the final plans. We think that with the development going in, they probably would want it underground and piped, and certainly I don't think we'd object to that, but we have the right to approve whatever the final plan is.
if you have any questions about the width of a potential pipe or whatever, Tom Zeser will be happy to talk about that, as I am wholly unprepared to talk about the flow ratios or laminar flow of stormwater through this property.
I'll ask him, is it 48-inch or 60-inch pipe? Okay. That should carry it.
No problem. Any other questions on this particular item? Okay. If I can, I'll move into item number 10. Item 10 and 11 are linked. I'll take item 10, and Rachel will cover item 11. Item 10 is resolution number 2022-12, which is a resolution to obligate $11,871,089.22 in coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. And so, as we've talked about in a previous study session, essentially what we're asking the council to do at this point in time is to work the funding strategy of this ARPA funding so that $10 million goes into what we kind of call the standard deduction, if you will, that can be taken under the final rule for use in general governmental funds, which gives us a little bit of a wider latitude of how we can obligate those dollars, and the remaining money to go into utility projects, specifically wastewater in this particular case. So that is, as we discussed in a previous study session, but essentially what we're asking for is the ability to put those $10 million into the standard deduction. And again, the money that goes into that set aside is still at council discretion. So those dollars will not be obligated or spent without council approval. It's not in any kind of additional fund that's just going to kind of disappear over time. So anything that we ask for through the ARPA means is going to be in a public forum for the obligation of those funds. Any questions on this item? I would also tell you that Rachel and I have had a dialogue with a number of folks in and out of the Municipal Association and some of our sister towns, if you will, to include Newberry, where we were at for our offsite, and they're taking a very similar strategic view of this, of taking the $10 million standard deduction for revenue replacement to give them that latitude as well. So I think we're in good shape. We're not out there by ourselves in that from a strategic perspective, and that a number of other municipalities in the state are moving in this direction as well. Any questions on this item? Okay. I'll move to item number 11, resolution number 2022-13, resolution authorizing expenditure of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, expense request 1. And to that, I will turn it over to Rachel.
There's not a draft resolution for you all to review in your packet. We're not able to put it all together quite yet. Part of the next resolution is we're trying to set up a format so in the future, as we come to you all with proposed projects to spend the ARPA money on, we're in one specific format, so you get used to the fund requests coming through. So I do want to note that the resolution for obligation and all future resolutions will not have ARPA in it. They're actually specifically the state and local fiscal recovery funds, or SLRF, which is a little bit more fun to say than ARPA. That's the technical acronym. So from here on out, you'll see SLRF listed on these, and we'll get to say SLRF. Papa SLRF is right. So what we anticipate doing is having expenditure requests come to you via resolution, and the resolution may have one project only, or it may have multiple. And so there are 2 projects that we're going to request your approval for expenditure on, one of which is the Southwest Interceptor project that we discussed at our last study session that I believe you all should be familiar with. And so that will include the infrastructure funds as well as a portion of the recovery funds. And then there's another request that we'll have for you all to consider that wasn't on the past study session, but it's come to our attention that we have actually spent all of our facade improvement fund funding, if you will. If you remember, it's been probably 5, 6 or so years ago that you all established the facade improvement program. I believe it was $40,000 that may have been allocated to that, and just as of last week, we've cut our last check for reimbursement. So a number of businesses in the downtown area and property owners have taken advantage of that. So it's going to be our recommendation that we take $30,000 to refund that program. So you all as council can let me know tonight, or sometime during this week, if you think that's an appropriate amount. If you'd like to see a different amount, certainly I'll put that within the expenditure request resolution. So then from here on out, Cami will keep a running list of all of the projects that we have on deck and approved expenditure items, so we know what the balance available is in our SLRF funding that's available to allocate towards additional projects. We anticipate within the next couple months coming to you with some other larger projects for consideration and approval, but these 2 projects, as we mentioned last time, are some of the most urgent in terms of the wastewater lines and now the facade program.
Thank you, Rachel. Unless there's any questions on that item, we'll move forward to our last one, which is item number 12, city property, resolution number 2022-14, accepting a deed of dedication for an off-site sanitary sewer line from Havenwood Camellia LP, along with a maintenance guarantee and cash deposit. And this is a routine action that the city does when we take over portions of a line. And ultimately, for those of you not familiar with it, this is the senior living apartments that are at Knox Avenue that are just up from the Chick-fil-A, a little further up the road. So we're excited about seeing them move forward on this project, and this is just a routine action that we have to take in order to allow them to do their occupancy. Any questions on this one? Okay,
That's just the sewer line, not the storm, just the sewer.
that's correct.
Jim, has any thought been given to the greenway path that runs in front of the building there? Is it going to be restored?
I guess I'm unfamiliar with, you're talking about the,
Part of the greenway extension runs up through there. It runs parallel to Knox Avenue all the way up to Georgia Avenue, where Georgia Avenue comes into Knox Avenue. My question is, will it be restored for public use? That's the main question right now.
I don't have an answer for you at this moment, Councilman, but I don't know if any of our directors have any input on that one.
Okay, well, it wasn't open last week when I was, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the agenda items for next week? If not, I'll close out item number 1 here on our study session. And what I'd like to do is move into department details for our directors, and the first up will be Cammie Hayes for finance.
I just have 2 quick updates for you this evening. As far as utilities go, we have a Cycle 2 disconnect this week on Wednesday and Thursday, and we also have a due date for our Cycle 1 on Thursday. I know that Jim updated you all that we received our annual financial reporting award, and that was for the year 2020, and it was at the same day that our auditor showed up to start working on the 21 audit. So that is currently underway, and they anticipate having the majority of their field work completed this week, and so then it goes into testing and a little bit of back and forth, but we'll have a report, and they'll come and present that to council. But if you have any questions that you'd like to reach out to them directly, we can provide their contact information.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
For all your hard work,
We
all your
appreciate it.
team.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
All right, next we'll have James Sutton from Public Services.
Good evening. Just to update you, utilities last week on the 24th, last Thursday, we had visitors from the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. They came in and conducted a annual sanitary survey of our water plant and our water distribution system records and on-site water tanks and booster stations. During the process, they reviewed our production records, treatment records, fire flow test records, pressure records, just abundance of records that we have to maintain as a part of our operations and standard procedures. They did give us a verbal satisfactory, which is their standard rating. They will follow up with a written report in the near future.
Good job. Thank you, James.
Next item, utilities, sanitation, and I'm sure streets and drains, probably most all of Public Services, Public Works will have some participation in this next project. Effective in the morning, we will start removing the 7 Gables structure from the site. And, right now, we don't have a timeline on how long it's going to take. It'll take probably 2 days to gauge the duration of how long we're going to anticipate being on site by the loads going out on the second day after the building, we level it to the ground. So we
Will there
don't
be
anti-
any material that anybody will be able to use when that's come down?
Yeah, I visited the site twice. I looked at it today. A lot of that structure's aged. There's like a eave on the front of the building. It's got some 2x8s. All that wood's been exposed to weather. Some of it's got bore holes in it, I assume from, I don't know what animal, but a bee maybe, or a boar bee or something that didn't look like termite damage. Some of the wood's rotted. I don't know that, it could be dismantled by hand. It'd probably go good for a shed or something in somebody's backyard maybe, but, I don't know about, the city would accept it in a new residential dwelling if you was gonna construct with that, but.
So just to
I hope that
pile
answered
on-
your question. but-
That's right. Just
I
to
don't
pile
need
on
a
to
shed.
James.
I don't need a shed, so I'm good.
Just for the, kind of for the folks at home, I know everybody here in the room kind of gets it, but we're strictly talking about the motel, the brick motel that's on the property, not the legacy buildings or fronting Observatory Avenue. Those are not going to be touched in this process. This is strictly the single-story motel structure that kind of bisects the property line.
I'm thinking we charge with a sledgehammer. Y'all remember we used to bring the old cars and they, $2 for 3 whacks?
Well, we invite, we invite you out. There's plenty of concrete you can beat on up there, that's for sure. But, anyway, is there any questions, any directives related to this project? Moving on, the city's been awarded 2021 Tree Care Award from Tree City USA. That's contributed from Roy Kibler, Property Maintenance Superintendent, and his staff, who does an excellent job caring for trees in all of our landscape beautification areas, right-of-ways, and streetscapes throughout the city. They put a lot of hard work in pruning the trees, caring for the trees, fertilizing the trees, and also Roy spends a lot of time with some of the garden clubs and also working with homeowners and contractors related to install and care of the trees after they're put in place. We should anticipate we may be getting a plaque, which will be presented to City Council in the future. But, follow up with that as it becomes available.
Now, James,
Rory, thank you.
it's a pity there wasn't a sign, entering to the city that says this award. So we'll know, but so the citizens know.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you, Ms. Pat. We are gonna post it on the website tomorrow. Usually we wanna make public announcement and then we'll update it on the website, but, anything that comes along after the fact, we'll, do what it takes to get it introduced to council and also the public as well. Off the record, has anything to do, but it's just one of my thoughts. With today's times, what we're dealing with across the ocean, I think that mural that was placed on Georgia Avenue kind of stands out and fits today's times and the needs for everybody to take a look at. Excellent job, whoever did it, and it's an attribute to the city.
Well, thank you, James. We appreciate that endorsement.
All right, next we'll have Mr. Tommy Paradise from Planning and Development.
We're going to get James to go take that picture with Mel Lambert. I got a picture with Mel Lambert out there today. I'm going to bring you down there next time. The three of us will get a picture. I love it. Thank you, James. That's good stuff.
Mr. Mayor, I saw that picture, and you look quite nice. You did good. The Board of Zoning Appeals is going to have a meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And also Forest Bluff subdivision behind Knollwood. That was rather controversial, I think, when it went through the Planning Commission. That's the preliminary plat's been approved. It went out the door last week, so they're ready to get their grading permit and get started on that. Just kind of in case your phone starts ringing, you have a heads up on it's coming.
Tommy, I know there was some talk about tying that into Cascade. Was that part of the preliminary plat or no? No, okay.
Thank you, Tommy.
All right, next up, Chief Thomas.
Just a couple updates. One good one, obviously, is the fact that we had some deliveries made to Station 1 this past week, and the new steel should be installed today. I hadn't had a chance to get up there today, but that was a promise that obviously they should be working on the steel. Portion of the insulation has come, so that helps us in that regard for begin the installation process later on this week as well. So we're seeing progress there, and we're very excited about that coming to fruition pretty quickly. So we can get that, as I've said in the past, get that roof on, then we'll be in good shape.
I think the brick's looking really nice.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
going to fit really nice in that. I mean, it looks good.
Thank you. It really does. They've done a tremendous job there. The other update is, you may remember back in August, we lost Dustin Beasley, our public safety officer. And I've been in contact with South Carolina Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame, and they will induct Dustin into that prestigious honor that obviously he's well-deserved for. And that'll take place in May. We collected all the information, given it to that entity, so we'll be hearing more about that, and we'll be attending that, and you'll get
Keep us informed on that when that is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Carl will be representing PRT tonight.
Our sports tourism season kicked off this past weekend. We had a regional volleyball tournament in the activity center. We had 150 teams in town representing multiple states across the southeast. So we're excited to get that season kicked off for us. This weekend is going to be busy at Riverview Park, so just fair warning. You come through there, there's a lot of activity. We have a 3-day basketball tournament starting Friday evening, 2-day baseball tournament. It's going to start on Saturday and end on Sunday, and disc golf will be also hosting a tournament out there on Saturday. So good for the hotels and restaurants in town. It's kind of why we do what we do. But just forewarning, Riverview Park is going to be heavily used this weekend. Wrapped up spring sports registration last Tuesday, and I have over 1,400 folks participating in that, so we're excited. Have all those youth in our parks again, and again, it's going to create a lot of weekday traffic for us, and a 4% increase from last year, so we're excited about that.
That's great.
We'll be submitting our grant to Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a National Park Service program. Y'all discussed that a couple weeks ago. We're going after a new facility at the Sharon Jones Amphitheater. And also, it kind of explains my lengthy report here. Sorry, I'm in wordsmith mode right now, and I'm just a little wordy. So we're also excited to announce the first annual river event. We're going to hold that the first weekend in June.
It'll be June the 4th, right?
Yes, sir. We've partnered with the Augusta Rowing Club, who thankfully stepped up when we reached out to them for advice. They have experience with the water element of our event. We're going to have an event or two on the Savannah River. And there's going to be an itinerary to be announced at a future date. We're going to hopefully involve the amphitheater with some entertainment, some food, and also wanted to kind of publicly thank Betsy Davis, Landon Ball, and David Buck, who helped us shape the event, and hopefully they'll continue to do so as we move along with our itinerary.
And just, so that's just for folks, whoever's watching out there in the live stream, this is the Citizen River event, which I think is a great name, so we got to come up with a name. That might be a good one, but anyway.
We have a name, sir, that we'd like to test out.
Okay.
Rockin' and Rowin' on the river.
Rocking and rolling. And so this was the one that was generated from all of the citizens, the list, and then from there, the citizens voted on it. So this was driven by the citizens of North Augusta, so that we're finally getting close to this point now. So.
It is. We had great response from it.
And thank you for you and Rachel and Rick and those 3 citizens committee folks, David, Landon, and Betsy, for their efforts. So thank you.
It's very appreciated.
This is very exciting.
All right. Now we have Tom Zeser from Engineering and Public Works.
Did she say rock?
Rocking and rolling. Rowing. Okay. I thought you said rolling. Was it rocking and rolling or rowing?
Rowing. Row your boat.
I'm going to have a hard time saying rowing. That's going to sound like a lot with quarters and a lot of other things. So I may just stick with Citizen Review. Okay. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it, sir.
So I know you were in your administrative update from last Friday that the downtown furnishings are being installed by streets crews. That work is progressing well, and we expect to have that, for the most part, completed by the end of this week, pending some permissions from private property owners. but otherwise, it's going fine. The downtown LED streetlight conversion is also going well. If you've been out after dark on West Avenue, you should have noticed those lights are completed. All West Avenue from end to end, as well as the side streets between West and Georgia are completed. And so now we're waiting on some additional bulbs, which we expect to have this week, and we'll continue up Georgia Avenue and Riverside Boulevard. And other than that, Streets and Drains is also, crews are working in Arbor Place subdivision, removing sidewalk tripping hazards throughout that neighborhood over the next couple weeks. That's all I got.
All right, JD McCauley will bring us to a close here for our department updates.
All right, good evening. This is my, well, it's been a while since I've been able to plug this, but we're still in recruitment mode. Just want to announce to everybody that's not here online that we advertise weekly for our jobs at northaugusta.net/jobs. We are still actively recruiting for multiple positions, but the good news for the city, though, is we've had an influx of high-quality applicants and new hires that we've seen come through Human Resources Department. A lot of good quality interactions with them. Our hiring managers are doing a wonderful job. And again, we're still operating a little short-staffed in areas, and as you would expect, our quality employees are picking up the slack with no problem and no interruption to city services. So big kudos to them and our hiring managers. And that's all I have, sir.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that concludes the department details, and I will turn the floor back to you for mayor's matters and whatever else you have.
Believe it or not, I really don't have anything except to say how appreciative we are for the directors for these awards and what each of them are doing. I think the city's being run fantastic, and we thank you for your efforts, all of you. I will be putting a vlog out this week. We'll be highlighting some of these things mentioned today. So that's really all I have concerning mayor's matters. And before I make a motion into the executive session, are there any other comments from anybody for the good of the order?
Let me say something. I'd just like to say we're getting ready to start a big kickoff to get rolling on our Miracle League field, which is for special needs adults and children. And so I would just like to spread that throughout the community. If anyone would like to donate to it, because we are raising the money to build the field. It will be at Riverview Park on the Hammond Hill side, the soccer field. But you could contact me, Pat Carpenter, or Miss Pam Stickler, who is the president of the wrecking crew here in North Augusta, and her office is in downtown North Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. All right, we're at item 4, legal executive session. In compliance with section 30-4-70A2, the city attorney requests an executive session for the purpose of discussion, negotiations, incident to propose contractual arrangements and proposed sale of purchase of property, the receipt of legal advice, when the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of the public agency in other adversary situations involving the assertion against the agency of a claim. Discuss is specifically related to the master development agreement for Riverside Village. At this time, I would like to ask, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Mr. McGee, do we have a second? Mr. Presnell. Okay, all in favor? That is unanimous, JD. And we will not be returning after this point. So y'all, thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening. We stand adjourned.